Was that?
That's good. That's good.
I'm more of a Teams than a Zoom person, so apologies for the hesitancy.
No, that's our fault actually. Sorry, my fault.
Okay. So yeah, so I guess welcome everyone. I just wanted to take a few minutes to share just a few simple perspectives to get the ball rolling before handing it over to Sue. I think 2020 has been a challenging year. That's probably quite a gross understatement. But when we talked about this, we tried to think more generically than the current sort of COVID climate, although it's very natural to think about that, and just really more challenging times, which may well last or outlast COVID, as much as I would rather not think about it. So just a couple of brief talking points from me, and then, as I say, I'll hand over to Sue. So I guess when we talked about managing engagement in challenging times, one of the first things really was, and it was something I reflected on earlier this year as well, is just keep focusing on the positives of your organisation. So your organisation will be challenged. It could be challenged because of customers. It could be challenged because of issues outside the immediate control of the business. But invariably, your business will be doing good things, and you shouldn't lose sight of that. And even during the height of COVID, we were always trying to offset the sort of, what could be quite oppressive, well-meaning safety messages with some hero stories, reminding people what we're doing for our customers and celebrating success. Although it can feel that you can find yourself not naturally focusing on that. And that would be one of my learnings for earlier this year, and something we cottoned on to later in the year, but not necessarily as early as we should have done. So again, just keep focusing on what you do and the positives about that. Challenging times doesn't change that. I think the other thing for me is continuing to think long term. I mean, I think most people remember you for how you act under pressure, and an organizational version of that is really how you behaved in a crisis. So did you stick to your values? Did you do things as you would normally do? Did you keep to your principles? Did you keep on some of the messages that you normally send within your organization? Because, as I say, one of the big factors for us in challenging times or in previous career is, even for the people that challenging times doesn't affect, so being sort of more upfront about it, even for those people whose jobs might not be at risk, they want their colleagues to be treated with dignity and respect, and they want to work for an organization who deals with difficult things in the right way. So it's not just about those people who may be leaving an organization. The individuals not affected will be watching as to how you go about it. Linked to that, another thing was what I phrased as an adult communication style, and I guess, I guess it's old theory, transactional analysis, and for me that has historically been a challenge in the organisation. I mean, now that at times took maybe a slightly well-meaning, what I describe as maybe a benevolent paternal style, and I don't think that is being honest, and that means it's not intentionally. So that means being upfront with people as to the fact there is a challenge and treating them like adults. And we've probably all had that conversation during our careers, don't you? Well, don't tell them on a Friday. Don't do that in December. And it's actually more about the leadership team's sense of self than necessarily anyone that's been impacted in that. I believe if there's going to be things that impact on people, they should know it as soon as possible. There is no hygienic time to deliver a difficult message. It's more about management teams thinking, well, it might, it's hygienic for them, not for the individual. And so being adult to adult, and I've had issues where that has been a challenge. So I've worked in businesses that were, well, as we mentioned, British Gas, so it's Chatham House rules, but organisations with big internal comms functions, sometimes or big external messaging. So they might, the CEO might want to send a message to investors about how we're going to respond to this challenge in times by restructuring, or I remember having a big debate once with someone who wanted to explain the fact that a number of thousands of people would potentially be negatively impacted, but never mind that, think about how it benefits the customer. You know, you need to try and sometimes bring maturity to those messages, but there will be times where it conflicts, but being upfront about it is the best. I think one thing I've always been taught in my career is I might not get people to agree, and in fact it might be a step too far to ask them to agree, but I do have an obligation that I try and make them understand. Okay, it's not my right to ask someone to agree to something that doesn't impact them positively, but I do have a duty to try and make them understand it. Again, during challenging times, and we've had plenty of examples, just trying to keep some of the good programs that you already do and bring them to the forefront. You know, in recent years, mental health and broader well-being has gained a lot of momentum, which is fantastic. And this year has been a need for that. And earlier on this year, we're a relatively global business, trying to do some of these concepts for those of you that work in organizations across Asia or China. There's very different levels of cultural understanding about this, and but it's important to get the concept across. And then I think the last thing, just in the interest of time, was in challenging times, just keep momentum on the normal planned activities. There was an example earlier on this year where we weren't as impacted by things this year as many organizations. We're relatively resilient just because of the nature of what we do. However, we were looking at launching a global benefits program. So essentially it was a global flex spends program. And one of the points of discussion was, well, we can't do this now because it's challenging times, right? It's, you know, we're asking people to take pay cuts, we're doing restructuring, we need to be respectful, and this would somehow contradict that message. And absolutely not. No, because you're doing difficult things doesn't mean to say that some of the good, positive things have to stop. I've seen that in many organizations as well. And so again, regardless of the challenge, whatever it is, you know, strategic, economical, you know, health-related challenges like COVID, trying to continue to do the normal activities and focusing on the positives is just as important. And it's not disrespectful to do that when some employees may well be facing some difficult conversations. That does not mean that everything should be put on hold. It's not possible in a large and complex organization. So, thinking I broadly kept to time, I was going to leave it at that and hand over to my esteemed colleague, Sue.
Thank you ever so much, Jim. That's great. That's perfect timing. I just rather like taken by your message about invariably your business will be doing good things, and you shouldn't lose sight of that. Challenging times don't alter that. I like that a lot. That's good. If I could trouble you to stop sharing, if that's okay.
No, this is great. How I technical inability in public. There we go. Have I done it?
That's perfect. Couldn't be better. Couldn't be slicker. Thank you very much. And Sue, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I haven't got any slides, so I'll just be talking. So Sue Swanborough, currently working for a company called Kolak Snack Foods. So we're an SME, so less than £250 million turnover, 1,100 people, 2 sites in the UK, so Park Royal in London and Stevenage. I've been here about 2.5 months, so still very early days. It's a organisation that's moving from family to PE owned, and we're having a significant period of change as we evolve to be more corporate. What does that mean? It means more about getting more processes and systems in place. So we're working with McKinsey, DuPont, as well as our own organisational change. So, you know, when you think about the context of challenging times, actually we might say we're having challenging times for some things, you know, but actually, so that's essential workers, obviously managing COVID, roller coaster of sales where they're less predictable, but compared businesses, you know, I know we're in a really good place and feel very fortunate, and actually having the conversation with Richard and Jim was really helpful in terms of thinking about actually whatever context you're in, you will have things and times that are relatively challenging compared to when things feel good. And so what I thought about was actually what are the learnings that I've taken from things I've been involved in that have really enabled me to, that I've applied throughout, whether it's a global corporate where, the challenges are more about scale, consistency, language, culture, as opposed to an SME where it's more about pace and visibility. There are some common things, and a lot of it will dovetail with what Jim has said. So there were two stories that really sprang to mind that I think have been probably quite formative in terms of my personal learning that I've continued to use. So the first thing, my example is actually it's around connecting employees to how we are or who we are as a business. So and that's around purpose and values. So this, as Jim said, Chatham House rules. So when I was at General Mills, which is now so global food business, there's a bit of a theme in my career actually. So now it's about 160 years old, US more global business, but quoted on the US New York Stock Exchange. So a big business, about $18 billion, 42,000 employees, 130 countries. And we had a situation where most of the, a large lot of our employees are based in world headquarters. And we had what we thought was a great mission. So nourishing lives, making lives easier, healthier and richer, which is brilliant for a food company, sounds really good. But we had a lot of millennials who joined who were sort of saying, actually, this doesn't work for us. Didn't resonate, can't really connect with this. And actually we also noticed, and particularly in the US, that the brand was weakening, and that was based on the most reputable companies survey. And private label in the US is not nearly as well developed or as common as it is in the UK. So that was a bit of a, gosh, what's going on here? So it caused the whole business, actually, in particular the board, to reflect and think about actually what do we need to do about retention and attraction? Why are we here? And actually looked back into the history of the organisation to say, what does it inform us about who we really are? So how can we restore that real engagement and actually create that love for the business that seemed to be maybe a bit wobbling? So there were, we are a consumer-led company, so of course did focus groups, as you would imagine we did, and 3 words came up really strongly. So one was around service. So quite early in General Mills history, so it started in the US as a flour producer, and there was a fire at the mill. And very sadly, some of the employees were killed. So General Mills set up in the community sort of a home for all these people, orphanage and whatever, and looked after the people. So, and it was very strongly, the business was sort of built on that ethos of how do we serve. The other thing that people said was really important, which actually is no surprise, was food and people. And so actually, then they also said, well, hang on, or we said, we're a global business and we're passionate. We've got a lot of passion, people who really care. So we developed this purpose, which was about we serve the world by making food people love, which actually is much more engaging, I think, on a heart basis, maybe, than nourishing lives, which sounded probably a bit head intellectual. So actually, there was a real commitment by the business to say living our purpose will drive our business. So it started off with real belief in that from the board, and actually needed to be built across everything we do. And the experience from the focus groups were, when we get people talking about what's really important to our business, what makes us tick, who we are at the real core, actually you create that engagement through the dialogue because people remember or reminded what it is that they're passionate about. So we had a very, really excellently executed process with a, company kickoff with the CEO talking about what it meant to him personally, and then cascading through different levels of leadership throughout the globe. And actually, one of the things that was very striking was because I think the CEO and the board had set the culture of, let's talk personally, let's be vulnerable. What does it mean to me? Well, actually, it's about my kids, and I love feeding. Cheerios was the first food I gave my baby for instance, you know, when my baby was born. And so they made it really, really personal. We had a community of practice, which was people, disciples who were really passionate about this stuff, who could share very broadly. We had, you know, that were actually what happened around the same time, which is very fortunate, was our 150th anniversary. So that gave another sort of focus. So we had all of these things going on across the globe. We had sharing best practice. So, you know, I think in China, they got all their families in and they created this big sort of map of the world with the products. And, you know, this was shared across the globe, so which was really helpful. And we had a week to focus on. And clearly there were the marketing assets to help people bring things to life locally. The thing that really struck me was there was a purpose day that was defined. So World Headquarters, in fact, actually streamed throughout the 24 hours because it was across the globe. People just stood up and shared on video their personal stories. And they cooked up using our products. We had actors who brought things to life locally. We interviewed, I remember filming quite a few people to say, what does this value mean to you personally? And it was fantastic, you know, photo competitions. So you had photos of people with their families talking about what made it really good. So for me, without talking too much about that, which obviously is very, very passionate experience for me, it was taken much deeper than just an intellectual experience or a tick box. It really challenged people to think about what the purpose meant to them personally. And when people start sharing stories, actually it becomes infectious. People couldn't stop talking about it, which was great. So that was really good. What else? I'll talk about my other topic now, being conscious of time. When we've had a few restructurings, as all of us will have had. You know, I've had restructures where I've been responsible for 2 sites. One of them was closed. That was when I was at Mars. Equally, actually, another one at General Mills where we lost 25% of the roles in the business. And actually, that for me is really challenging. So it's almost like the other side of it. How do you engage people when their jobs are at risk? And for me, there's something about taking engagement deeper to trust. So really what you want people to think is, you know, I trust you as a leader because you've been open, transparent, you've told me how it is. I might not like what you're proposing, but I'll know you'll have considered me in the process. So it's a bit, you know, Jim talked about, you know, I might not agree, but, you know, actually, or you might never agree, we just want you to understand. I would say actually, and accept what it is. So accept what it is and say, okay, I know you've thought about me. I don't like necessarily what it is, but at least I know you've considered me. So how do you build that? For me, this clarity and honesty, be really clear on the messages, be visible as a leader. So don't hide. Talk to people about how they're feeling. You know, actually, it's interesting. We put ourselves under pressure quite often to have all the answers. Actually, you don't have to do that. If you just listen to what people are saying, respect their view, you know, don't apologize for the proposal being made because it's right for the business and it's about the future sustainability of the organization. But actually, if you know, you can continue to engage people and help them have their say. So I remember when we did one of our big restructures, a 25% one, there was a conversation in the organisation about, well, you know, these engagement surveys that we do, we were doing Great Place to Work at that time. And I said, we're going to do it, actually. I'm like, oh, you can't, you might not get great results. I don't care, actually. This is us staying. You know, we want to hear how you're feeling. And actually, as it happened, the timing was great. It was just after we'd done the communication and started the consultation, so people were feeling they were being treated with respect. So actually we got good results, which was extraordinary, really. So considering the individuals and empathizing with them is important. You know, in practice, equipping people to answer questions from their families at home. So one thing that I always do, I like to give people an information pack so they can take something home with them. You know, if they're sitting in a session where they're being told their role's at risk, actually, if I've got something I can hold, take home with me, so when my family ask me what was said and I can't remember because I was so much shocked about what happened, I've got that with me. So just, you know, really thinking about how is that person going to feel, what's going to be going on for them, encouraging people to have those conversations and share how they feel. So I remember actually when we closed one of the sites at Mars, we actually initiated a conversation between the leavers and the stayers at the management level. So a group of about 30 people, and roughly half were going to be leaving and half were going to be staying. Really interesting, quite an emotional session. But what became apparent was the people who were leaving didn't want to talk to the people who were staying because they felt guilty that they were going. The people who were staying didn't want to talk to the people leaving because they felt guilty that they were staying. So actually that conversation was extraordinary, because it's like, well, hang on, it's crazy. We're all feeling guilty. What's all this about? We don't need to feel guilty. We just need to care about each other, empathize, and have the conversation. And that was massive. It was challenging to do, but it was really helpful. So I think I'm conscious of time, so I probably need to stop talking, don't I? So the learnings, I think it's that I continue to apply is why we do what we do as the organisation. So what is it that really matters most to us as business? How do we articulate that? How do we build trust? So how do we help our leaders to build trust, be visible, align our words and behaviours, take time to understand how people are really feeling, create those conversations through clear messages. So honest and transparent about the what, but at the same time showing respect and care for those impacted. So I think through doing all of that, you build confidence in the organisation that actually it cares about the people and also for what it stands for. So sort of confidence about the future.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Sue. I love that leavers and stayers story. That was that's excellent. I